What up, dudes, and welcome back to the YoVG Games podcast Sidequest, where we take a subject that maybe didn't have enough time to cover in a main episode, or we take a question of yours and we answer it here.
Yeah, like today's episode is all about the guy who named the different parts of a penis. Like he was a doctor probably, but like he had to come up with like Latin names.
He was just looking at a map of Stockholm, and just like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you think that's like he was just all like, we're gonna call this a glans.
I don't know.
And
Maybe he was looking at a Snickers bar or something. I don't know.
I feel like there's something there. We could do a full episode of the podcast. Is it video game related? No. But it'd be interesting nonetheless. No, our topic comes from Psychosis, who asked on last week's side quest, and he asks, since we talked about the Elder Scrolls Online, the question is, do you think you can still call a game good if you have to mod it in order to make the game fun or playable, a la Skyrim? That's a pretty good question. I think that becomes a slippery slope for, say, Bethesda, because a
Yeah, he's
lot of
definitely talking about
Bethesda games.
Bethesda games. Well, my knee-jerk reaction is like, no, like the game's not good because you have to tweak it. But
Well, the game can become very good.
that also makes an interesting question where it's like, well, there was a good game there. It just needed some polishing or something, you
Yeah,
know?
like if the bones are good, the game is good. It doesn't matter how much you mod Blasto, for instance. Blast, you're never polishing that fucking dirt.
That game
I
is,
love
yeah,
it.
has to be remade. There's no getting
Right,
around it.
like that's just that ain't happening. Um, but a game like Skyrim or Oblivion, like the things that make the game good are there. It's just that it can be hard to get to if you don't fix some of the glaring issues. Now,
I don't have an
personally,
easy, yeah, I don't have an easy answer for this question, honestly.
well, the thing is like I liked unmodded Skyrim fine. I just agree that modded Skyrim is quite a bit better.
Hmm. And I played with some of the mod on console on some of them highly suggested mods. It didn't really help it enough. Um, like
Well,
combat was still awful. Oh my
I never
god.
played Skyrim on console. I only ever played it on PC.
Well, they have mods on console. Like they officially have them. And I did the balance patch mod, or the basically the bug fix mod, and I did like a beautification mod, I think, and some other stuff, but didn't
How
really
do you
save
get a
combat.
mod on a console?
What?
How do you get a mod on a console?
You download it?
They have like a mod, like if Steam has like you could just go into their mod library and download it. Where
Yeah.
does the console have that?
Like when you load up the game, you literally go down, instead of new game, continue, whatever, you go to mods.
Bethesda just started putting that in.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
you know what? I
Bethesda
know that.
officially
Yeah, for
supports modding on
Fallout.
console. There's a little bit of curation and vetting, it's before they just put it
Well,
up on
that's
the
good.
store. Um,
That's
to make
hilarious.
sure the game doesn't like crash the game or anything. But yeah,
No,
there's
yeah,
mods on Skyrim on console, and that's what
and
I played
Fallout
Skyrim.
4. Yeah, that I forgot about that. Yeah, that's right. You can
There
because
was a
I
weird shady thing where like Bethesda was trying to like monetize it, and that didn't go over really well. I remember that being a thing where it's like, hey, you can sell your mods or whatever, and we'll give you a cut, kind of thing. And it's
yeah, go
wait
fuck
a minute,
yourself.
yeah.
You want me to enjoy this game? Hmm. Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah,
Um,
this is a tough one. This is a tough one for me, honestly, because
okay. Let's take a different company. I realize Bethesda is the most obvious. Let's
mhm.
go to something like No Man's Sky. Was No Man's Sky a good game before all the updates? Now, granted, they aren't mods because it's not the community that was adding them, at least,
Yeah,
but it was the company was modifying it after the game release.
yeah.
I would argue that the idea of No Man's Sky was good, but the game itself was not good until many months later
Hmm.
when they had fixed it up.
It's one of those weird things where it's like you see the potential. Like the game has the potential to be good. There's something good there.
Right, and any game that's going to get modded has to have that potential. Nobody's going to waste their fucking time trying to mod a game that sucks balls.
Yeah, it's easier to say like, um, games that are saved from modding are games that always had the potential. Like, something was there to make it good. Like
Right.
there's certain games where it's like there's no saving this game. Like there is a whole there's actually a whole community of people dedicated to making a fully functioning Sonic 06. But I don't know that there's any saving that game.
Big community, that, huh?
Sonic fans are crazy, man. But yeah, like there is some argument there where it's like it doesn't even matter even if it isn't buggy. The game's not good, kind of thing. Like,
Right. Like, what mods are they gonna do for like Cyberpunk? You know,
yeah, well, Cyberpunk. A lot of people say it's a lot more stable now. Some people are like
it
it's
is.
kind of enjoyable.
It is a lot more
Um,
stable now. And the things I liked about it, I still like about it. Um, I just don't know that if there's like what mods would they do that would bring people back?
yeah. Well, I think a mod or a game that like gets saved by its modding community. I think you could say that game was an unpolished gem,
Mm,
right?
okay.
And then like someone went in and polished it. But like there is other things where you get a polished turd,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And that's definitely happened too, where it's like the core game is just not good. Like there's no polishing this, no amount of polishing this turd is ever gonna like save it.
Right.
Um,
And no one's gonna waste their time modding to try and save a shit game.
yeah, like I'm trying to think of things that are beyond like the hilariously bad games, right? Like trying to dig my not go down the rabbit hole of like Superman 64 and ET and Ride to Hell Retribution and stuff like that. I mean like games that were just bad, but not like catastrophic.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Like
right.
um
I can't think of a game that was bad that could have been saved by mods off the top of my head.
yeah.
Maybe one of the bad Splinter Cells.
Yeah.
But then again, none of the Splinter Cells were like fucking awful.
Well, one thing, and people hate me. Some people hate me for saying this, but I'll talk about it. Like Star Ocean 6 recently came out. I only played the demo, granted,
Right.
and I've heard like, oh, the final game's actually way better. It's a lot more stable with its frame rate and stuff. And I'm like, that's not going to save the dialogue, and that's not going to save, like the battle system from being like too easy or too much of like just because like you get this anti-gravity text. You basically just dive bomb things and then just fly up and dive bomb. Like
Hmm.
there's no reason not to just constantly dive bomb the enemies because it's a real-time combat system.
All
Um,
right.
so when you're given the ability to hover and fly, so it's like you can't like you can make the game run better and maybe look better, but like the story of that game is just ugh. Like the pacing of that game is ugh. Like no amount of polishing would make Xenosaga any of them good. And people think 3 is actually pretty good, but it's like no, like they're movies and then you do turn-based battles and then you watch more movies. Like it's nothing to make that good. Like you could try to redub it, I guess, but you might as well just like
There's
read. It's like the idea of having something that you watch 80% of to me is just kind of like there's no saving this.
you could mod Assassin's Creed games. Like Ubisoft games you generally come out and they're polished enough, but there's usually like there's
I think
places
it's
they could be
I
improved.
feel like Assassin's Creed is a game like if it had like years of polish put on it, it actually would be like an excellent game.
Right.
Like Black Flag. I remember playing that when it was new on Xbox One, and I was having fun with it. Actually, I was actually having a good time, but it's a little janky. It's a little
Yeah.
janky, and there's a little bit of like unpolished there. Like
And like
just
mods could take that to the next level and make it
right.
really
There's some general ubi jank or whatever, but like if you could modify, maybe like improve the combat system a little bit, make things feel a little better on fighting things or whatever. I think
update the
you've
environment graphics
yeah, I
to make
think
it
I
look
think if you modded and polished the shit out of, say, Assassin's Creed 4, I think you have an excellent game on your hand. You have a pretty decent game. You have one of the better Assassin's Creed games already. But I do think if they had another year or 2 years of just polishing, you probably would have an excellent game on your hand, like a Red Dead Redemption level good game on your hand.
or what was the French Revolution one? I think it was
Um oh yeah,
Unity.
yeah, Unity.
Right, like that one, modders could fix a lot of the complaints for that game.
Yeah, because that game just wasn't fucking performing.
Yeah, like it
Like
just
that was just choked by technology almost.
it ran like shit down a slide. Just even when it was moving well, it's upsetting. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
um, so like that's one that like modders could they could
Yeah, I think Assassin's Creeds are one of the most excellent examples of like there's a good game here, it just needed more polish, needed more time. But especially for those games back then, they were on yearly release schedules, you
right.
know, and that just all that really did in the end was just hurt it.
Well, I
Um,
wonder if those games are on Steam now, if there's a modding community for those games. Like, is Unity on Steam? And I wonder if there's
yeah,
fixes from the
yeah, yeah.
modding community.
Or Assassin's Creed Unity, I don't know. That I don't know if that particular game is. That one's famous for like sometimes rendering the hair, the eyeballs, and the teeth, but not the head.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my
I,
god.
I, I, yeah, that was reminding me of like some of the other.
BioWare
Yeah,
games are games that could benefit from modding too, where like the idea and the bones of a Mass Effect could like mass
yeah.
I liked Mass Effect 1 a lot.
Honestly, I think if they had more
It could have
time
been
and had
improved
more
too.
individual animations, like
Right.
just in natural dialogues or whatever, I think it really could have stood out. Like, no, you're right. I think Mass Effect was good, and two was such a big leap over one, and it was better, and it was really getting there. Um,
I mean,
where yeah,
two was like they could have almost just not released one, and two would have been like, "Oh fuck yeah!" Like they would have like two was
unfortunately,
so good that one
there's a
didn't
lot
even
of
need
character
releases.
buildup that requires you to have done shit
Oh
in
sure,
one.
yeah,
Unfortunately, but yeah, one had that really kind of like like the bones of Kotor were still there, of like characters just kind of like standing there, rah, 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 rah. And
and yeah, and the movement is very
yeah, like
yeah.
that really could have actually really helped it. I was thinking of a game called Greedfall, um,
Greedfall.
which has this very um almost colonial slash pirate slash very 1700s look, fantasy 1700s, like
Hmm. Greedfall.
um so it's like it's supposed to be sort of like imagine like a whole like new world, like entering the new world for the first time, but it's not America, it's like fantasy,
Hmm.
but it's also got this sort of like colonial aspect to it a bit. Fantasy RPG. I think it's made by Spiders. They're an RPG developer in Europe. It's Euro jank as shit, and the aesthetics are actually pretty cool on Greedfall.
But it's
But you
still
pick up
Eurojank.
you pick up the controller and you start fighting, and it's like it is Euro jank out the jankiest Euro jank, and it's like,
The modder could save that.
what if you modded in like decent combat because it's already trying to be real time, but as with all Eurojank things, it's like basically tripping on its socks at the finish line and shitting all over itself. Um, but I wonder if okay, but what if the combat was good in the game? Like it played like like Near or Automata or something like that. I'm like, this would probably be really, really fucking interesting. Because like the world and the aesthetic and the world building seem pretty good. It's just,
How
it,
much can a
it
modder
controls like
really
someone that was blind and deaf programmed the game for real time combat. So
yeah, like how much could a modder really change that though?
that's where like modding has to get in heavy modding. Like they literally like almost gut the whole thing and replace it.
Right.
But it is
Yeah,
just
that's
the one thing you got to replace is just the combat. Replace,
yeah, and that's not even that big of a
replace
part of the
like
game.
improve input latency, fix hitbox problems, and kind of like maybe change up some of like the dodging iframe mechanics, and maybe you can make it into something good. I don't know. I
So
feel
that's
like it's a tall order for modders, but it's like if you had another 9 months of development for the full development staff, I feel like this is something that could have made this game go from being like an interesting Eurojank to like, hey, this game's pretty great. You should check it out.
so I guess in conclusion, the answer is the game has to have a kernel of good already to be enhanced by modding.
Yeah.
So you can call the game good,
There has
but
to be
it's not
something there to there has to be a gem underneath somewhere, right? It can't just be like a fossilized turd.
right. So uh, modding can't save a bad game because modders aren't gonna waste their fucking time. So the game's already got to be at least something has to be good about the game.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, something has to be there to polish.
I'm sure that wasn't satisfying at all, Psychosis, but we appreciate the topic. That was an interesting one and a
I would
difficult one to
say
answer.
if I'm reviewing a game, like in official review capacity, I would say the game is still bad. And say like, oh well, if you modded the game, would you give it a higher score? It doesn't matter. If I'm scoring a video game on like a review scale, the game
Hmm.
as presented is bad, regardless of modding. But that opens up the whole. I know that's kind of like a roundabout way of like kind of like rephrasing the question even, but like from a if you're asking, I don't know, if he's asking for like a Metacritic standpoint, should a reviewer review a game based on how good the sold product is or how good it could be with modifications? I'd be like, well, still a bad
Should
game.
be sole product, yeah.
Yeah, the product you're being sold is bad, but it can be fixed. It's like buying a broken chair.
Hmm. Well, next episode will be all about bleaching your asshole.
Hmm.
Thanks for hanging out, guys.